probably the two best studio albums.
I'm recording. Just
Hi,
no, just say your name.
Karen Pierce.
Just answer the questions. What's your name?
Burt Reynolds,
How old are you?
48.
The first song I remember hearing was Truckin' because it was played a lot. I was probably in middle school or early high school, and that was just one that everybody knew the lyrics to. I probably didn't even know it was the Grateful Dead till later on when I met your dad and he said, "Do you know the Grateful Dead?" I'd say, "What did they sing?" And if he said Truckin', I'd be like, "Oh yeah." But that's the first one that I remember being recorded.
So first question is, do you remember the first Grateful Dead song you ever heard?
Goes from Two from the Vault. Probably whatever the first song on that is. Good Morning, Little Schoolgirl. Probably Two from the Vault.
My favorite Dead song is Touch of Grey, and I really think that's because it's the only song that came out after I knew who they were and I listened to them a lot with your daddy. It was came out probably while we were dating before we got married, and it was a top 40, as a pop song, mainstream song. It was very popular and I loved it, and I think that's probably why it's my favorite, because it came out after I started listening to the Dead.
Do you have a personal favorite Grateful Dead song?
Studio or live? I don't know. It's different. A lot. Changes a lot.
Just talk about whichever you want to talk about. You gotta answer the question.
I don't know. It's studio or live. It depends.
Whatever
on that.
you want to do.
Live, it would probably be any Dark Star. Dark Star is always alive. Dark Star, the other one. Something that isn't like repeatable. And then studio. I don't know. Anything from a lot of Shakedown Street, American Beauty, and Shakedown Street are probably the two best studio albums.
What does the band mean to you? Like when you think of the Grateful Dead?
Well, just that they're a live band that played different shows. You never saw the same show twice with them. They were all very talented. I don't know a lot about the Dead. Like, I don't know who came on when and who left when. I know there was some evolution. I saw them play from the mid 80s until the early 90s when they were coming to Hampton Coliseum. But definitely great band. Changed from night to night. They weren't like all other concerts where they would memorize a set and play it. So I think just a band that could play.
What, when you think of the Grateful Dead or like the band, what does it mean to you?
To me,
Yeah.
freedom.
Can you expand on that? Can you just say anything else in just one word?
I mean, that pretty much sums it up. It's an ideology of freedom and really good music. The freedom kind of pours out of the music just based on how they performed their concerts. What made them famous. The acid test. 60s was a time for freedom. cultural shift in the United States.
Do you? Well, the question is, when was your first concert that you went to with Dad? But do you remember your first, like the first concert you went
Yes,
to?
absolutely. Shortly after I started dating your dad, and they came to Hampton Coliseum, it was the first concert I went to that was just such a. You can't go to a Dead show and not have such a unique experience. So of course I remember it. The thing I remember the most were the Deadheads, because every other concert that you went to, you go in, you know, you walk around, you see people, you listen to the show, you leave. The Grateful Dead concerts is just an experience. Seeing all the Deadheads in the parking lot, they were so nice. Walking all around Mercury Boulevard in Hampton, playing hacky sack out in the parking lots, talking to everybody. Never been to a concert where everybody was smoking pot. I mean, that was an experience to see that in the Hampton Coliseum. Nobody was arresting anyone. The girls dancing on the floor, I remember that a lot. Really cool to see Deadheads who followed them from place to place. The clothing, just the laid backness was amazing. I think my first show, I probably watched the audience more than I watched the band. And I remember all the recording equipment on the floor. It was crazy how many people had antennas, and they were sitting in chairs recording the show live, and they let them. Like any other concert, you couldn't even take pictures. But there were, 100 people sitting on the floor in front of the stage recording the show, and they had their little kids sitting next to them with earplugs, like headphones on to block off the sound, and that was just crazy. It was such a cool experience.
Do you know what year it was?
85.
What was your favorite part about seeing Dead and Company at the Coliseum last November?
The first part.
Can you tell the viewer what happened? Or...
The opening, Bertha. Because then I think it was like, as soon as they started playing that song and hit the chorus, that was I think that's when it like hit me how fun it would be, or I guess how I don't know how to describe it. I've never really been to a concert, so.
Do you know when Dad got the Grateful Dead blanket?
The Afghan?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I gave that to him for Christmas in 1999, I believe. There was this Dead shop, or head shop, on Mercury Boulevard, not far from where we lived in Hampton. And it was a little bitty building about the size of the sheds, or like somebody's garage in their backyard that's detached. And they sold all the paraphernalia and shirts and stuff like that. So they had the Afghan. That's where I got his shirts initially, before the internet. That's where I used to buy his Grateful Dead stuff.
Is there anything else you want to say about the blanket?
The blanket?
Yeah, do you like the blanket?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I loved the dancing bears. We had, so Daddy raced sailboats up and down the bay, Chesapeake Bay, and sailed from Annapolis to Bermuda. So we raced with Terry for years, and then Daddy and I bought our own sailboat around 94. And so we had a racing sailboat, and on the back of our boat slanted, and we had the dancing bears across the back. So when we would show up at some other yacht club after a race, like we'd be in Annapolis or Fish and Bay, people would come up and start talking to Daddy about the Grateful Dead, because everybody loved the dancing bears. It was quite a conversation starter. I love the bears. That's probably my favorite symbol or whatever graphic that they have. We had so many other, another favorite was when Virginia Tech came out with Grateful Dead shirts, again probably in the 90s, and you had the VT and either the dancing bears or something else that everybody knew was Grateful Dead. That's kind of when it went mainstream in the 90s. Pretty much everybody in the 90s knew who they were. It didn't matter what age you were.
What do you think about the Grateful Dead blanket?
It's a little too small. Wish it was a little bigger. But it's comfy.
Is that it?
It looks cool.
You don't care about the dancing bears?
I didn't say that.
You're not saying much.
Yeah, dancing bears are cool.
I think you brought up one time, and it kind of took me by surprise, but then I realized you were right. Our first baby was the dog that the puppy your dad adopted at the SPCA, and he named him Floyd after Pink Floyd. And then when Kristen was born and we got another SPCA baby, he named him Seamus, because Seamus was the dog in the Pink Floyd songs that howled at the beginning of a song, and he was that howl was on our answering machine for our phone at home when we had Floyd. And when Daddy and I were picking names for the twins, you and your brother, we went through tons of male names, tons. And we couldn't agree on them. Daddy wanted them to have some significance. He didn't want just some general name. But we had a hard time agreeing on them. So, we had Kenneth, who was named after your grandfather on the groom side of the Pierce family. And Stephen from you asked if it was from St. Stephen, the song, the Dead song, and I am 100% sure now that's why he picked it.
Do you ever remember their music being played around the house as a kid? Like, do you have any memories of their music when you were younger?
No, but I feel like when I heard St. Stephen, I've heard it before. Like, that's a fact.
But you have no memory?
Also, the Two from the Vault CD case, I felt like I had seen that before. Like what it looked like.
So it seemed like a memory?
Yeah, I just couldn't pinpoint it.
Do you remember? So you don't have any memories at all of you can't remember them, like the music being played in the background growing up at all?
I drowned as a kid. That's my biggest memory.